Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us tonight at RJ Julia. Our guest this evening, frankly, doesn't need an introduction, but you would be hard pressed to stop me from gushing about her, so I'm gonna do it anyway. To know Gina Barreca is pretty much to love her immediately. She's whip smart, warm, and empirically hilarious. She dazzles you pretty much by walking into a room, but on top of that, she also holds the highest honors of teaching excellence at UConn. She's been honored by the Connecticut Women's Hall of Fame. And quite frankly, has published more work in more places than I have the breath to mention tonight. Tonight, of course, we are here to celebrate her newest work, which is part of the Fast Women series. Latest installment, Fast Fallen Women, discusses the ways that women fall, the ways they pick themselves back up. So as women are inclined to do, I'm going to invite you to partake in some forbidden fruit, and join us in a little bit of a fall that is falling in love with Gina Barreca.
Really love this. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming out on a beautiful evening. I know that there are other temptations. I heard there was a spy paper test. I was trying to convince the two women who were here. One of them was a nurse who had heard me speak at a nursing, I don't know, 2,000 years ago. And I said, you know, this book will tell you more secrets and reveal more, which I really do believe. I'm particularly proud of this one, but it is part of the series. It is the Fast Women series. I hope that some of you have seen, some people are in the room have been in other versions of the Fast Women. It started with Fast Fallen Women, and they're all published by Woodhall Press, which is Connecticut Press, an independent press. And so there was Fast Funny Women was the first one. Just figured that's what I do. I'll tell you about what I've done over the years. And then there was Fast Fierce Women. And so Falling came next. And the one that's going to come out next year is Fast Famous Women. And so you can see we've decided that this is fun. And we're having a good time. And it has been nothing that I expected to do. I'm just going to do what I usually do in front of the group, which is that I will give you the details so that none of you have to try to do math in your head, or try to do the details about me as if we were at a state fair and we were going to win something. So I am 66 years old and I weigh 150 pounds. The two things that especially women want to know about holding the it's really that's what they just want to know if you're over 18. I don't think anybody's asked. But really, because I realized that when I would do talks and I would say, well, I graduated from high school in 1975, and I could see people go up like to the left, relations, and then I just again I don't write fiction because I can't make anything up. I know there are fiction writers in the room and I admire them enormously, but I cannot invent. I can only like react and respond to what has actually happened. I cannot actually invent things, but if you pay attention, there's not actually much you can do if you really listen to what's going on. And we can talk about the craft of writing, you know, as we go along. And I really do want to leave a lot of time for questions, conversations at the end of this. But we have the more special guests just arriving. And that one of the things about realizing that you don't have to make anything up and paying attention in the world is just listening to what people have to say. So there was one time when I was giving a talk and with the whole thing about saying, you know, how much I weigh and how old I am, not only just to keep people's attention in one place, but one woman came up and said to me, said, okay, you said how old you are, you said how much you weigh, what size are you? It's a new one. And I said, let me think about, because the whole thing is honesty, right? That's what makes humor work. That's what I think makes all writing. You can tell when people are telling the truth. And I thought, okay, I want to tell the truth. What size am I? I said, an Armani, and a 10, and a Dodge dress bar, and a 22 W. That the more we pay for garments, the smaller the size. And if I could afford like Chanel, I could be an 8. I could be in single digits. I have to. It's why people shop at you. It's not the fashion sense. I go to Chico's and it's like, it gives me the fine lines of a cabana. It's something that's actually flattering, you know, to turn it off the lights. But you go in and say, yes, it's true, it's perfect. Oh, 3 is far too big. Most people will tell you that. And that's a lovely thing. It's absolutely right. Nobody does this to a male one. Right? And that part is because men do not go by sizes. Men wear pants with their waist and leg length on them without shame. Right? A pair of Levi's, it says, 38, 42 or whatever. If women do that, they would round us up by numbers. And if the waist was longer than the leg, they would take us to other states and put us like they would load us into trucks and take us to other places. I mean, it's really, we don't do that. We have learned, and this is not some instinctive double X gene thing. Talking about genes in a different way. This is because we have learned to doubt ourselves and think about ourselves and worry about ourselves. And that's where women's stories come from. And I've been particularly interested in women's stories my whole life. There was a woman who I was talking to earlier who remembered a story that I told. You can already, if you haven't met me before, this is not going to come as a surprise. If you have met me before, you've probably heard the story. But I'm from Brooklyn, New York. After 36 years at the University of Connecticut, no one has ever come up to me and said, Dr. Barreca, what part of Connecticut are you from? I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I'm still, after 36 years, like I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I tried for a couple of years to say aunt, and it didn't take. I just couldn't do it. It was like wearing gingham. I tried gingham a few times, and people just started putting plates on me. It was not a possibility for me to pull it off. Other people do it beautifully. It was just not something that I could make work, and I realized I didn't have an alternative, so I didn't know what I could do. But I grew up in a big Italian family. Actually, my mother was French Canadian, but she died when I was pretty young, so it was really the Italian, the Sicilian woman who raised me. And I come from one of those 3-story houses that are on the outskirts of every city in the universe. I once gave a talk in Australia, and actually Fremantle, Australia, so it's on the western coast of Australia. It's as far as we can get from Connecticut and stay on the planet. And I'm afraid to fly. So I was with my traveling companion, Dr. Smirnoff. And because this was a women's conference, I was in a middle seat in coach. So it was a quite a long flight, but I got there and I thought Fremantle is the same as Brooklyn. The outskirts of every major city are exactly the same. And this was an international women's conference, and not like Bradley Airport is an international airport. Where like there was sometimes I go to Canada for like 2 months, something went to Jamaica. Did you ever notice the sign at Bradley? It's a huge sign that says international airport, but they abbreviate the word international. There is huge, there's like 16 feet of sign, and they abbreviate international. Just see it the next time you go. You go back from here. And you won't be able to unsee. And that's what I mean about paying attention. It's like why did they do that? There's all this sign, there's this many letters, they didn't have to abbreviate it international. But anyway, so I go to three rentals, the same three-story houses, and everybody's got the same story all over the world, because there were women from the Middle East, there were women from Africa, there were women from all over Asia. And when I started to talk about the little ants that raised me in Brooklyn, I was afraid it was going to be too parochial, that this wasn't going to be, you know, it was going to translate, and all these women were coming up going, oh, it's just like my house, it's just like they already liquid. So the women who raised me were these the Italian version of these women, and my aunts were 3'2", and they weighed about 750 pounds. And they all wore floral print dresses. Okay, and the only thing missing was to distinguish them from an ottoman. Was a button on the top of the head. That was it. It was like they were on casters, they looked wonderfully, and actually they weren't wearing the ottoman outfits. It was on a formal occasion when they would wear all black. And the way you could really distinguish a formal occasion from the ants was when they had, remember they would wear the orthopedic stockings, and it would be if they had the white elastic above the knee. Above the knee, if the elastic hose was above the knee, that signaled a formality. Below the knee was everyday. So the ants were separate from the owners. Now, no one is more loved than me in an Italian family. Except them in Jamaican family, and then the Swiss family, and then you see my trends. You know. And so these men were beloved. But I noticed that the women who were always in the basement kitchen, it's like in a lot of Italian households, if you're not Italian, then you know, there's the upstairs kitchen that nobody ever uses. It is immaculate, it's perfect, it's fully appliance, and no meal has ever been cooked in that kitchen because we don't know people good enough to come to the house to have a meal cooked. And that's like for when the Pope comes. And those would be the people who could sit in the living room that no one could go into, because there was one of those where the furniture matched and was covered in 4 inches of well, right, plastic. So if you sat down as a kid wearing shorts, they got you up with a spatula. And so, you know, it was pretty much in the same, a lot of working class families. They had one room where that was, you know, that was it. So the real action was in the basement kitchens and the downstairs. And so I had my Aunt Rose was stirring the gravy, the red gravy. It's called sauce was a gravy. And she'd been stirring the same pot since like 1948. The fabulous sauce. I think got better every day. Because 24 hours there had to be hot food because somebody could get parole. And some of you think I'm kidding. It's been really funny. And so Aunt Rose had one arm like a longshoreman, but just he's doing his down. And when the men would come, so women would go to mass, I'm a recovering Catholic. Okay? And because for me, at 66, the church, the Roman Catholic Church had one lesson for women my age, and that was to remember that sex was something dirty and disgusting that you say for someone you love. 30 years of therapy and the correct medication has helped. There are a lot of stories in past fallen women that go back to exactly those origins. But I noticed that the men, you know, the meals are being prepared for and who would sit in judgment over those meals, they're not part of the discussion in the basement, and the women would be laughing in that basement kitchen in a way that they didn't laugh around their brothers, their sons, their uncles, their fathers, the men that they loved, that their whole lives were dedicated to. Their whole lives were about making sure these men were happy. And I mean, for example, no Italian man ever got up once he sat down for a Sunday meeting. Okay? If, let's say, my Uncle Tony was sitting down and behind him, we had refractory benches, it was benches, right? Not chairs, benches. As I said on the bed. Big table. The immediate family was like 170. So sitting down, and if, let's say Tony sat down, and behind him was the piece of furniture that had the cutlery and everything. But if Tony sat down and he said, "Hey, girls, I don't have a fork." Now Tony could reach here and get a fork, but instead, Tony goes, "I don't have a fork." 17 women go, "Oh, there's no fork. Tony works hard all week. There's no fork. Who was responsible? What? Tony's been gone like this. We go, like, let's tell Tony. I got the meat for the brittle at the butcher. He doesn't. I got it at the butcher he likes, but let's tell him. I got it at the butcher he doesn't like it. Let's see what it does. So they carry the food like carpet, so that's right? And they go, and there's Tony with his fork, and they go, Tony, he'd be sitting there, just in all his authority, and hardworking men, 6 days a week, they didn't go to church, was praying the same mattress this morning, like, it was like God was on the wife's side of the family, like, you say hello for me, and so they would be sitting there, and the women would go, and absolutely straight faces, say, Tony, this week with the kids coming up, it was with school, there was a project, I couldn't go to the avenue, I just had to go to the butcher on the corner. I know your fine palate. I know you have a very fine palate. So before I tell you beforehand that I didn't get the veal at the place that you like, I didn't get the veal just at the corner. And Tony, with the authority of like Juan Valdez, the coffee takes a bite. Then he goes, "Oh, no, it's good. It's good. It's not the same." And the women would laugh, but they would do this different language where they all look at the sea, they look at the ants and the grandma and everything, would look and go. He said, "No, it doesn't." And they look to a way that was different from how they laughed again in front of the men that they loved. With the men that they loved, they did the silver bell tinkling laughter. They're going. No one has ever made that noise. A good time. One thing the mess. We're holding our breath. Self-support. Why men are afraid of women laughing. What I did was they used to call me Snow White, but I didn't. They used to call me Snow White, but I didn't. So that actually became a bestseller, and it was for 16 weeks. It was a bestseller nationally in Canada on the Globe and Mail, their big newspaper. And to give you a sense of the family that I grew up in and the way that we were treated, my father, when I adored, and he loved me, when I called him, because I found out quite late, but what the result was the last to know. And it wasn't in those days, people sent letters, remember, it took time to find out about this. And this was 1991. And I called my father when I found out. I said, "Dad, the Swiss Weapon is on the national bestseller list in Canada." And without missing a beat, as if he had waited his whole life, he said, "Well, honey, it has snow in the title." He said, "Canadians are very little." He didn't miss a beat. He got it instantaneous. I mean, the second I said it, he was right there. There was not a waiting. I have never, when people say, I don't do stand-up comedy. I have a 2-book minute. But I have never played for a harder house than my own family. I do not, there is nobody harder to make laugh, to not come back with an answer that my own, which was the men in my own family. And looking at my own family, it was easy. The first time I was on Oprah, I made a mistake and called one of my kids, told them, so, you know, and Sally, the other myself is next. And she said, wow. And I said, so I come back with the message on the machine, even in New York, I got that was a message on the machine. She says, you know, Gina, it was fine, but the camera really does. It's the first Barreca not to be in handcuffs. It would have been a nicer way to begin. Your hands were not behind your back. Photos of you appeared on television. Thing to do. But one of the ways, and this was such a delight to see when I came in, and Lee Jacobus, my colleague and my friend from UConn, was retired, and himself a writer, whose books can be found here on the shelves, books of poetry and memoir. Was kind enough to find this on the wall. This was a picture of me in 1991 when I gave my first reading, which was at RJ. Roxanne Cody, I owe really, I think, a big part of my career. And this is, again, for the nascent writers or the emerging writers, whatever your age, it's like bookstores, people, and I make this for every author I was here 2 months ago, introducing Helen Ellis. I say, you have to buy your books at independent bookstores. And if you're a writer, you have to buy everything at an independent bookstore, because without an independent bookstore, you will never be published. You have to buy books. You cannot buy them on eBay. You cannot buy them in other places. You have to buy books here. And I'll tell you a deal I will give you, because I intend to become clinique. And if you buy more than 2 of my books this evening, I will give you earrings that I have made of the book. And if you buy more than 2 books, I'll give you a sticker. If you buy 10 books, I'll make you a lasagna. That's what it says. But really, without Roxanne and giving me away the first break, and then what Roxanne did, she was a new bookseller then. Right? You know, he had a whole career in New York before that. She was the accountant's accountant. She was on the cover of Money, and then became, you know, the head of publishing, independent publishing in America. I mean, everybody looks at Roxanne, and one of the reasons that everybody comes to this bookstore is because everybody in the literary world and in the publishing world respects this bookstore as the flagship for what should be done. It is an honor to be here and to return to you. But I really feel like Roxanne with that girl with a terrible haircut. But that was how that started. And so Snow White is about, again, the difference between men and women's humor. And then learning how to pitch an idea, how to pitch a book, how to get an idea out there. When I talk to emerging writers, an emerging writers can be, you know, 82 years old. You can be 82. It's tough to start life as a skater, I think, or to want to, you know, suddenly become a ballerina if you're 82. But I'm really can start writing. And in all of the books, in Fast Fallen Women, in Fast Fierce Women, in Fast Funny Women, there are writers from 20 years old to 89. So, and some of them have never been in a book before. Some of them in this new book, we have James Smiley, the Pulitzer Prize winner, who wrote 1,000 Acres, who wrote Moo, who is one of the most important American writers. Amy Tan, Bobby Ann Mason, Lynn Carroll, Carolyn Levitt, the New York Times bestseller. They all wrote original pieces just for this book. Marge Piercy wrote original pieces for the early book. Faye Weldon, the great British novelist who actually wrote the opening episodes to Upstairs, Downstairs, which brought Masterpiece Theater to America. Faye Weldon wrote the last piece she ever wrote before she died. Her Fast Funny Women. It didn't kill her. Faye would like that. But you know, these established writers are the cornerstones for the book. But the new writers are really, they infuse the book with a kind of an energy, again, an honesty and a different perspective that make this collection. I see putting the books together is like inviting people to a big dinner, not the one in the basement, the one in the nice kitchen. But inviting, and like at the end of any dinner party, there are going to be people who who are, the women who are stuck at the appetizers and the champagne, and they're laughing loud, and they're yelling, and they're grabbing food and storing it in their cheeks for later. And there are women sitting very seriously discussing important topics and eating the main course, and there are 4 women crying on the veranda. We have all been, including the men, we have all been those people at different points in our lives. And so it's interesting to see the perspectives that people bring to the page. And they're all of the essays, the idea of flash fiction, as I define it for these books, is that all of the pieces are under 750 words. So imagine me telling Jane Smiley, you have to take 30 words. And she's like, but it really works this way. And I'm like, Jane, everything is 750 words. That's really my part. No, it has been an interesting experience putting the books together. But fast fallen women, the books are accruing more attention, and writers are now asking to be in the books, and I'm getting people from actually around the world asking what's the next book, and is there a way for me to submit a piece, and how do I do that? And I asked 4 fast famous women. I had a number of people who have never been, who are not my students, who are not writers that I've invited, to be part of other events, but people who are asking, and I said, you have to tell me your idea in 1 sentence. And that's what people don't want to do. So to give you an example, so Snow White is, this is a 250-page, 300-page manuscript. That was actually based on my dissertation, which was on hate and humor in women's writing, and which is unreadable. Dissertation is itself unreadable. I don't think that sets it apart from almost any dissertation. Okay, that's why people are not snapping up dissertation. Those on the New York Times, but okay. I did turn the dissertation into an academic book for Wayne State University Press, which is fine, respectable. It's not something that even the population of books do. But then I met an editor, and she said, can you make your theories about the differences between men and women into a trade book for a different kind of audience? And I said, I really have to get to I'm self-supporting, I need to stay divorced, so I need to do this. She said, well, can you? I said, yes. And had 2 months. I said, yes, I can do that. I can write both of those, which I did. And so I'm not a writer that depends on inspiration. I'm a writer that depends on a deadline and a check. And it doesn't matter how big that check is. That check could be $15, but it depends on your years. And when it gets cheaper, it's over. Because that is itself a luxury wage. But what I learned from Harold DeSanti, he was himself a novelist and became the executive editor at Penguin Random House. And he was the one who acquired, so he told me we could do money and took me to lunch. I ordered from the left side of the menu, which I had never done. Remember those menus? But I was looking because I'm looking at it's $2.75. I'll have the lentil frittata, as opposed to I'll have the lobster bits. She was like, I haven't expected that. It's like I'm having 6 hors d'oeuvres. I'm the ones with the winter. And I learned when I spoke to the marketing people, when they have to sell the idea of the book, because in fact, it's requiring an editor, they have to sell it to other people at the publishing house. And I said, what's this book about? The book is about why women hate the 3 students. And that's sold the book. And I said, tell us why. I said, well, you've never seen 2 women go up to each other and go, yeah. Years are lessons perfecting yuck sound. Women do not have nasty nicknames for each other. Women do not go up to other women that they adore and go, yo, bucket fist. So whatever, that's what we do. Our voices go up so high that our bats can go. Which is sometimes tough when we're negotiating contracts. So we have those very different voices that can go on at once. But saying that's the summary of the book. That's the tagline from the book. It's not a plot summary. It's not going into 17 details. It's not giving the 30 years of research on humor that informed it. You're saying this is why it explains why women don't do that, and why women laugh in the basement differently than they laugh in the bars for some reason, and like how this works, right? And then it's all about. So again, we could talk about this when we talk about craft, but for fast forward, and I just realized I don't have my glasses around my neck, which I usually do, but let me read you, instead of already, let me read you a little bit from, the introduction. First of all, I actually, Mary, who is a lovely former student, she now is doing the social media for the book. My glasses are in the thing. And your phone is on too. It's like one of those English lessons. My glasses are in the bag, your phone is on the bag. Sorry, the other bag. And the reason is I have a friend who makes me, I usually wear glasses, my glasses on a string around my neck. Are they not in there? Oh, they're blue plastic. No, they're not in the case. They're $3.
Yeah, right.
There's something like that.
Try it.
Maybe I could throw them out and they won't. You got it, okay. So I got the blue so that the blue and the red look like the cover because I'm a girl. So I want my outfit to match. You see, that's again. I really, I did, sadly, I thought a lot about this. So sadly, I had a whole different outfit on in neutral colors and I thought, who am I kidding? But actually, because as people know, my friend Dr. Benevento was in the back, as Jacobus knows, as Mary knows, as Emily might remember, as Tess might remember, the former students who were here and friends, that I usually wear my glasses on a chain. I have a girlfriend who's like a big shot corporate person, but for fun, she makes jewelry. And she makes me different lenses, I guess, in mine, that go with the different colored glasses. But I got these to go with the books, which doesn't have time to make. So when I do this at school, because I always have them around my neck, and if I don't have them around my neck, I spend the entire class touching this. And you know, universities are trying to get rid of the older faculty from it. Here's to be somebody who goes, that woman is just touching each other. 2.5 hours. Somebody, but I also don't let my students be trying to notice it, so they can't afford it. That's gonna really work. As things go forward. Thank you, Mary. Apologies for that. But so this is how I describe what goes on in the 3 books. So this is sort of my mission with these 3 books, and I think for my life in writing generally. Writing it down is the opposite of covering it up. The 75 pieces in this collection see large objects through small lenses, as all writers of short pieces must. But their attention to detail must not be mistaken for an appetite for minutia. All good writing reflects and illuminates life. Fast volume and pulls up a compact mirror. So that's the idea of holding up a compact mirror. Some people get that. In terms of the introduction of the dedication, which I spend time thinking about. So the caveat that this is to the point. So the book is for every woman who lost her virginity but kept the box of Kinder. Here's to every woman who felt like she was the only girl who wasn't pure, perfect, and upright. And Mom, here's to you. You are not a bad. You're simply a heritage. And my mother was not a virgin when she got married. It was a story that was told to me in whispers. And no, really, I mean, she was, born in 1922. And for her, that made her, she felt an exile from the world that we lived. That she wasn't around, that this was like something she carried on her back, like a bag of bricks, that she felt that she had to justify, that she felt she had to apologize for, that she had shame for, and that shame was sort of impossible to not project onto her daughter. My brother did not hear those. For a man, that was not the idea. right? That had nothing to do with that. But for me, that was part of the legacy. So I start the introduction with, let your hair down, let your clothes fall to the floor, fall for a line, fall in value, fall on your back, fall on your knees, fall into the gutter, and look up. Sigh, feel, laugh, understand, then rise. The fallen woman is in motion. She has a story. She's usually kept it to herself. The memoir, confession, humor, lived experience, professional discoveries, and intimate revelations, fast fallen women, these whispered conversations between years. Without fallen women, where would we be? Let's start their literary history with Motherless Eve in Egypt. Head through Milton and Paradise Lost, get into Kate, containing the Shrew, or Juliet and Romeo and Juliet for that matter, who, as we recall, has sex with one man, then dies. Right? Oh, she's a great romantic heroine. No, let's teach that in 8th grade. Swerve through Jane Austen's Lady Susan and all the bitchy women in Austen's book, not ignoring Austen herself, until we encounter the fallen woman of the modern era, 1847 to be precise, Becky Sharp and Thackeray's Vanity Fair. Be shocked still by Scarlett O'Hara in the Pulitzer Prize winning A Racist, Gone with the Wind, with success of Lucid Bird Blonde, a Lorelei who refuses to fall, but can be pushing. Learn what happened to women of color who also refuse to fall, and Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God, meet Gloria Wondrous, who literally falls in 108. See what happens to young women who might not fall, but who wobble and collapse the bell jar. Give sidelong glances at the girl who was at the age of 12 at the beginning of Vladimir Nabokov's Lolita, a glimpse of the emergence of women who engineer their falls for fun, and Erica Young's Tear Flying. Witness the punishments that might happen to women who enjoy their falls too much. If word gets around, and amidst the Handmaid's Tale, learn how women triumph over their falls in Morrison's Beloved, and celebrate the rise of women in Zadie Smith's Wait. And that only takes us up to the start of the last century. To get anywhere, the woman must fall. You can fall by being tipsy, by getting ahead of yourself, by missing a step. You can fall because it was a blind alley, a sharp curve, a slippery surface, and a stumbling block. You can fall because somebody pulls the rug out from under you, or because the whole time as you stood believing you were on solid ground, there was a trapdoor. You might swoon, fade, trip up, or get swept off your feet. You might be dumped, discarded, disregarded, be used up, and have been of no particular value. You can fall because you were abandoned and then became a woman of abandonment. Consider the word abandoned. If you're abandoned, you're left behind, you're emptied out. Something or somebody else comes in, the way it would into an abandoned building that was vacated and right for the next tenant. But a woman of abandoned, that's something else. That's where you say, I'm done. I'm not paying attention to what you told me, to all those rules telling me how I'm supposed to stay stable and good. And the woman who does something with abandon, it's almost the same. It has to do with something positive, not negative. It's not just a release from restraint, but an embrace of appetite, as if in reply to the sanctity of scarcity. She rejoices in the belief of abundance, in the idea that there is enough, or at least enough for now, and who knows what tomorrow will bring. Culpa, meaning fall, but it applies responsibility. A culpable woman is a capable woman, and an admission of guilt is the price of admission into a life of free will. Ending, think of this collection as a companion. Fallen women are often used as an object lesson, as the subject of a tutorial on not to become her, and how not to become her. This book is no such tutorial. It is instead a celebration. It encourages you to take risks. The risk of losing the place for yourself entirely, the risk of failure, rejection, humiliation, of not being able to get it back, and being seen as foolish, brazen, bitchy, grabby, and batshit crazy. Embrace to fall. And one of the things that's important about all of these books is that they are collections. They're all of these different voices together. And I'm delighted to say that Art Julia has the quotable card that was made out of one of my lines, which is really a fun thing. I mean, you know, So again, the writers in the room, I don't know if it's encouraging or disappointing, but I've made more money in the Poetry Club than I have. So you never know what's gonna work. And interestingly enough, it is based on, a line that is from, Anita Lee's Gentleman with Both Lawns, which is a book I teach all the time. It is hilarious. It's nothing, it's like nothing like the movie, which is great in its own right. But Lorelai in the book is a seditious, amazing woman. But I realized that Lorelai's really important relationship is not with any of the men who passed away, but with her friend Joy. They're the ones who have the most intimate relationship, not sexual intimate, but they're the ones who really have each other going through life. And I said about them, it's not that diamonds are girls' best friend. It's your best friends who are your diamonds. So yeah, that gets wrong. Right? I mean, I definitely have that, but it's really, but the friends are irreplaceable. Friends are also, if diamonds are supposed to be the toughest thing, they're not anywhere near as tough as your best friends, who can, see you through everything, who are unbreakable, and who can cut glass if they need to, right? They really, they're the most important thing. And so thank you for being part of this community tonight. And I would love to hear stories, take questions, talk about writing, talk about whatever you would like. I'll call on people if I don't see them. Very. Speak loud.
If you could get any female writer from history to write for Fast Following, would it be?
Ooh, any word from history. A writer. But Cleopatra would be fun. But I don't know how she would be. I worship at the altar of Margaret Atwood. I teach classes on Margaret Atwood. I taught classes on Margaret Atwood and Kay Weldon. I taught classes on Margaret Atwood and Thomas Hardy, which have a lot in common. That was a really interesting class. I said I want to teach both of those again. And I had to justify putting them together, and they went, it was beautiful. It was like lattice work. These, a century apart, different countries, different everything. It was amazing. The students loved it. 400-page books a shot. We could all have to read every page, and they did it. And the students come back and so much up. So Atwood would be one. I really would love to see what Jane Austen would have written now. As opposed to what she did. I don't somehow think the Bridget Jones books quite live up to what Austen would be writing, although again, God knows she did. She started a franchise, and again, I admire any woman who can keep going with what she did. So I would have to say, I want to see, but she's given us so many fallen women, so maybe that's not fair. But Jane Austen gave us a lot of fallen women too. I did most of them. I think all the women writers that I like were filled with them. I'm trying to think of a woman writer who doesn't have as her main character a fallen woman. Who would you have named?
For the book?
Yeah.
I didn't think of the answer to my own question.
Okay. Well, whatever people think. Right? You look like yourself. It's Chopin. Although she did some pretty fallen. Right? I mean, we're talking the awakening.
The story of an hour.
The story of an hour. Yeah, absolutely. That is the story of a woman. That's a woman who realizes, right? I'm free, but he's dead, but he's not dead. If you didn't read the story too bad. That's the story of it's a great story. But and actually the women that we read about in books by men, Emma Bovary. Emma Bovary is not brought down by, she's brought down by retail. She is, and it's because she keeps buying things for lovers, nothing. She goes, it's because she keeps spending. That's what makes her take the arson. There's people who are going, I'm taking away your credit card now. It's how no matter how many TJ Maxx $10 credits you get back, doesn't mean you're making up for how much you spent. Anna Karenina. I mean, it would be great to have those women given voices. Anna Karenina, Lily Bard, right? I mean, Lily Bard, Edith Wharton could be fun. right? Edith Wharton, you know, so that she gave us Madame Olenska in the Age of Innocence, who is a fallen woman, right? Remember the Age of Innocence? If you don't remember the Age of Innocence, go watch the Scorsese movie, because basically it's a great film. And Scorsese treats Edith Wharton with, he makes that basically, because it's old New York. And he's basically doing all the New York stuff he does with mobsters, except the mobsters are the old Dutch of New York. They're the landed gentry of New York, who first settled to Wall Street, who first brought the money in from the Netherlands. And he needs to, so he does basically not good fellas, but good fellows. And he does nothing. He leaves out one important line, and the rest is absolutely line for line Wharton. So it'd be interesting to have Wharton not have to kill off Lily Bar. That's getting pretty you should. House of Earth is great. Age of Innocence is fabulous. And I do not often say you can watch the movie as like an introduction to the book, but Age of Innocence, it's such a, it's Michelle Pfeiffer and Daniel Day-Lewis, and it's just, it's gorgeous. And there is one kiss on the palm of the hand that's better than almost every piece of pornography I've ever seen. And I'm not telling you that comes ahead of it in terms of pornography. So yeah, other questions? Ideas, rebuttals? Yes.
Oh, going away from our literary conversation. Staten Island.
Staten Island, good girl.
There you go.
All right, you made it off the island.
I moved here, when I was 2.5. But I'm still here. And then when you said the flower dresses, I said, oh, no.
When I thought she dressed, you're the fancier dress for this evening. No, you were not in, you were not in Ottoman. You were not. You're not talking.
When I made to be a bridesmaid, my
What was it? What was it?
It was comic world chins with puff sleeves.
Do you see that the puff sleeves are coming back? I'm seeing news anchors. I'm seeing news anchors that look like they're little hits from the prairie. I mean, you cannot talk about the collapse of the thing while wearing on the prairie and with a string pine and a little bow saying, yes, the Federal Reserve can no longer do this. But I make my own salt. I'm sorry. You are undermining your own authority. The Little House on the Prairie thing. Nix it. It is not, I can't do it. Okay, fair enough. But Staten Island in the room. Very glad. Very glad.
Staten Island is turned into Florida of the Northeast.
Yeah.
It used to be this little rural town like Durham until they built the Verrazano Bridge, and then it all went.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. And actually, this is one of the things about teaching in much of the Verrazano Bridge. About 10 years ago, I had a student explain to me a term that I've been seeing in magazines about the Bikini Bridge. You know what this is? So a Bikini Bridge, Mary does, young people know what this is. I bet.
I'd like not to know.
They're like, a Bikini Bridge, and again, you won't be able to see it, is where you're supposed to be able to, it's the bridge between like your belly and your thighs. When you're wearing a bikini, you should be able, there should be room. You see, am I describing that correctly? Between the hips, that your hips, you're supposed to have no body fat whatsoever, but you're supposed to be able to have room to look down. And when this young woman told me this, I think it was Italian girl named Angela, when Angela explained this, and I thought, my bikini bridge is the Verrazano. It has 4 legs and a toe. It also has a sign for the Samaritans that said, don't jump. All this number. I have a very different definition of what my bikini fit would be compared to whatever. So the Verrazano conjured up it was my immediate response. It was the version of my father saying, honey, it has snow in the time. It took me no time whatsoever to come up with that response to bikini fit. And I'm sorry I had to explain it. Other questions, ideas? Yes. Did you go open a funny family? Did I go open a funny? That's a really interesting question. And it takes to a complicated place in my heart. I grew up next door to Judge Judy. So Judge Judy is actually in the first book. And where she explains that her father was my dentist, which is the only way I could afford to have my teeth. And really, I mean, he did us for free because we were the next door neighbors. He was the dentist, she was the dentist partner, she went to college. She was the first girl, I was the first one, the first girl in my family to graduate from high school in a time and fiction. So why are you gonna send her to college? Why are you gonna waste your money? I'm gonna give a woman an education. Just gonna, she's gonna do it. Yeah, she make a good sauce. I do make a good sauce, and I need to. And some of you know, I did a book called Bates in Portland about being one of the first classes of women at Dartmouth College. We had just let women in 3 years before I entered, and Hanover, New Hampshire. I was considered part of a racial group in Hanover, New Hampshire. I was diversity. Because I was poor and I was Italian, and they thought I was there to make up the beds. And in 1975, which is when I started, even my age, so you do that. In 1975, when I started, it was terrifying to me because all of the girls, really, most of them. Is anybody from Dartmouth? I'm sorry.
Went here as a minority because it was French Canadian.
French Canadian, really, no, I'm serious. It was not, you were not one of those people from Edith Wharton's, So, I go to school, in Hanover, New Hampshire, where I think that they only let a few women at a time, and I went there was a 7-to-1 male-female ratio. So I thought I was really like Miss Bubbles. But then the guys would come up and go, "Where's you?" And I said, "Well, I sit next to you," and like, why not? And then they'd walk away because they didn't want. There were signs saying "Better dead than co-ed." And whole hogs go home.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that's fun.
They were my ex, he and his roommate, who was similar minority being fortunate. Thought that was the most deplorable thing that ever.
Oh, good. At least they were on it. But they really, this was it. The guys would hold up signs grading us on a scale of 1 to 10. You watch it for the fraternities. So when I'm walking in, and when my father dropped me off, he was like, everybody just seems to be leaving Brooklyn because you're pregnant. Why else would an 18-year-old leave the state? Right? So I thought I have 9 months before anybody expects me home. I might as well have it with so I didn't have the same kind of pressure that other people have. And again, I'm not making this up. Can't make it up. The motto for Dartmouth is it may be small, but there are those who love it. What everybody from my block wouldn't have said. It may be small, but there was something really funny mom. And all these guys named Skip and Chip and Trace all said, "What do you mean?" And I thought, honey, I'm going to explain that to you. But it occurs to me if the motto is for Smith or Tolkien or probably Smith or Vassar or Holyoke had been, they may be small, but there were those who left them. It would have taken 230 years for somebody to make a joke. Because women's bodies have always been a subject of a very public, very male humor, with the idea of a woman laughing the other way. But nobody thought. And so I sort of sharpened the sense of humor from that because it was the only way you could make yourself laugh. Was to be fun. Because otherwise nobody was going to hear anything else, especially. And but I got up there and I said, that there had to be answers back to some of these questions, so that, you know, I was friends with a woman who was a swimmer, and she's, all these women were ruthless, they all just like they were from the planet Mexico. They were amazing people, but she was a swimmer, and some guy with a turkey mark, she goes with her, and she was beautiful. And after I said, anybody mistake you for a guy? And she said, no, you. We learned how to answer that, and it's sort of gathering those answers. And now I would say that all of us can come up with those ones, but we usually bury them, right? Because it's under the, if I say that, what if everyone was self-esteem, what would do that, that would be terrible, what if you know, I think we try to make us, you know, it was Liz Carpenter, who worked for the Democratic administration under the Johnsons, who was friends with Ann Richards in Washington, and did a bestseller about her time as the first female press secretary. And it was a big hit and bestseller. And Arthur Schlesinger Jr., a man of Madison, South Carolina, writer and a political figure, came up to her apparently at some cocktail party and said, "Loved your book, Liz, who wrote it." Oh, and again, now your first instinct, but instead, when the Arthur said, "Glad you liked it, Arthur, who read it to you?" You know, I told that what's so interesting is because I do a lot of these talks at these corporations, and usually have to do some sexual harassment lawsuits. There are big signs saying Dr. Gina Barreca sexual harassment workshop, and some of those guys think I'm going to help them do better. And I always say the first thing we need to learn is that harass is one word. One word. They're writing it out. And some people are taking it, so it's on its way. And but I told him to the only way so men like it, and you know, it's coming up with that one. We all have this. It's the first one, the spirit of SLA, right? It's the spirit of the staircase. It's the thing you think of as soon as the door closes. It's just so I can't think of that. Why can't I think of that? I think of it in the middle of the night, I write it down. Then the thing that was running. Only women would come up to me after that story and said, I could never say it, even if I thought of it, I could never say it. And so many women have said this, always, because I would go home and I would think, what if Father says that you really secretly dismiss? What if we have a child who has a reading disorder? What if a grandchild is using phonics? We would have to volunteer 3 nights a week for the literacy society. No, it's interesting. I have told that story in many places. And at one big event, one put her hand up and said, I'm head of the Connecticut Literacy Society of America. And if you're going to keep using that story, you have to give a free talk every year. But it is, yeah. But that's it. But women are always we need to take it with the nurture caretakers. Every woman here has a bag in which she's carrying everything that she needs to start life in a new state. Now you have a credit card and a phone. They figure they need it, they can buy it. I have batteries, I have a flashlight, I have an extra pen. You say to a woman, I have a headache. She's like, I have aspirin, I have Advil, I have Tylenol, I have Aleve. My sister-in-law is a nurse. You need food bags, you need active. They're giving samples. Because we want to make sure everybody's okay. I mean, it's just, but we also have to start putting away some of that. So to go back to your question, for 36 years, and I never let the question go. Is that my mother, who I spent my life, I was clinically depressed. Now she was in clinical depression, she was agoraphobia, she was in the house, she was profoundly sick. And part of that, I think, had to do with her early life and systematic treatment by her large French family. She raised her children not in her mother tongue. She was French Canadian, right? But my father grew up speaking Italian. She grew up speaking French. They would fight like hell in their native tongues. So I know how to say everything you're not supposed to say. And, which is good on the streets of Paris and Sicily, and whatever, but, it's like, no problem. I say, but I could say, you can alone, stop following me, because that, I still have to go back to the music room. But, I tried to make my mother laugh. She didn't have a sense of humor, but she had a great appreciation. And so it was like, I felt it was my job to cheer her up.
So you were the funny one.
I was the funny one. My brother also has a great sense of humor, but it's that sense of humor that's a side that cuts everything down in its there. And it's good at it, but it is not an encouraging sense of humor. And my father had the sense of humor that was there's snow in the tank. But that was the first thing out of the snow. So my friends were sending balloon pics. So it was something that I learned worked, I think, while I was in college. That was the way to shut somebody up without giving a 4-hour, discourse on something. So guys would come up when our grandfathers were here, there were no women. And so finally for 3 years, I tried to explain why co-education was important. Not every year there should be single-sex schools, but certainly not these Ivy Leagues that are the threshold, ground for places that are needed to get people into positions of power, and it's not, nobody listened. And by the 3rd year, when this is all grandfathers, and when they went there, I said, when your grandfathers went here, there were no indoor lights. I said, things get bigger. And I realized that if somebody laughs, where like a light comes into their eyes, despite themselves, you can make them laugh for a moment. You are standing on a place where you are sharing a perspective. They don't want to laugh, but you've got them. They understand what you're saying, even if they erase it. For that moment, you're sharing territory, and that's one of the reasons that humor is so important. So I think I use humor in very 2 different ways, and so that it was a way I thought of offering comfort and connection, but it was also very much a form of self-protection. And I think really let's go again.
Well, if humor is an indication of standing on common grounds, I think we have all been standing on a very lovely shared island tonight.
Oh, thank you.
And the fun continues around the corner. Gina's going to be signing books, which many of you have already purchased, and more of you should purchase. Get the earrings, etc., etc.
So again, 4 books, very good.
Before we progress to that, though, I want to ask everyone to once again join us.